Coast Guard cutter Spencer pulled alongside the drifting Liberty ship at dawn. Lieutenant Commander Harold Benson couldn't have known that the rusted hull before him, the SS Mercy Williams, hull number 442, contained evidence of something that would change naval medical protocols forever. Behind him, 300 miles of empty Atlantic stretched to Newfoundland. Ahead, the silent ship rolled in 6-foot swells, engines cold, radio silent. Between the two, 63 days had passed since anyone had reported seeing the Mercy Williams or her crew of 47 souls. The ship should never have been alone. Liberty ships traveled in convoys, always. 30, 40, sometimes 50 vessels moving together across the U-boat hunting grounds, protected by destroyers and corvettes. The Mercy Williams had departed convoy HX-231 from New York Harbor on February 12, 1943, bound for Liverpool with a cargo manifest listing steel, grain, and medical supplies. She'd been assigned position 7C in the convoy formation, nestled safely in the middle ranks where German torpedoes rarely reached. On February 20th, 8 days into the crossing, she'd simply vanished from formation. The convoy commodore's log, archived at the Naval Historical Center in Washington, recorded the incident with bureaucratic brevity. 0200 hours. SS Mercy Williams failed to maintain station. Signal lights unanswered. Assumed engine trouble. Will investigate at dawn. But dawn revealed only empty water where the Liberty ship should have been. 2 destroyers searched for 6 hours, found nothing, and returned to the convoy. With U-boats prowling and a war to win, no one could spare more time searching for a single cargo vessel. Standard procedure dictated she'd limped to Halifax or returned to New York. The Naval Operations Office expected a radio message explaining mechanical failure, maybe a broken propeller shaft. Liberty ships, welded together in shipyards from prefabricated parts in as little as 42 days, weren't known for reliability. When no message came, paperwork was filed. The Mercy Williams joined the list of vessels lost to enemy action, presumed sunk. Except she hadn't sunk. For 57 days, the Liberty ship had drifted across the North Atlantic, carried by the Labrador Current southward along the edge of the Grand Banks. Her hull, painted in wartime gray, had faded to the color of storm clouds. Ice crusted her railings. Her cargo booms hung at odd angles, as if the ship itself had suffered a stroke. And no one was on deck. The Mercy Williams had been built in 6 weeks at the Permanente Metals Corporation Yard No. 2 in Richmond, California. Launched January 8, 1943, one of 18 Liberty ships to slide down the ways that week, part of America's industrial miracle that would produce 2,710 such vessels before war's end. She was 441 feet long, 56 feet wide, 7,176 gross tons. Triple expansion steam engine. Single propeller. Top speed, 11 knots. Crew capacity, 47 men including captain, 3 officers, 8 engineers, and 36 seamen and stewards. Her namesake, Mercy Williams, had been a Quaker nurse who died tending wounded at Antietam in 1862. The ship's bell bore her name in raised bronze letters. That bell would later be recovered, melted down, and cast into a memorial that still stands at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. Officials claimed the bronze was needed for the war effort. The truth, buried in classified files until 1978, was simpler. No one wanted that bell kept intact. Captain Edmund Vickers had commanded the Mercy Williams. 52 years old, merchant marine veteran with 26 years of sea time, he'd survived 3 previous sinkings, once by U-boat, twice by storm. Personnel files described him as competent, cautious, inclined to avoid risk. His wife, Dorothy, lived in Baltimore with their daughter Helen, age 16. His last letter home, dated February 11th, had been cheerful. Should be a milk run, darling. Medical supplies, so we're marked with red crosses. Even the Nazis respect hospital ships. Home by April. Save me a slice of Helen's birthday cake. First Officer Robert Chen, 31, Chinese-American, had worked his way up from able seaman to officer despite prejudice that kept most Asian sailors in steward positions. Second Officer James Hartwell, 29, former Yale student who dropped out in 1941 to join the Merchant Marine. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb, 47, Scotsman who'd worked engine rooms since age 14. Ship's Doctor, Lieutenant David Marsh, United States Navy, assigned to the vessel by Naval Medical Command, standard practice for ships carrying medical cargo. Dr. Marsh's assignment had been last minute. The original ship's doctor, Henry Kozlowski, had broken his leg in a dock accident 3 days before sailing. Marsh, 34 years old, had arrived with sealed orders from the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. His medical bag contained the usual supplies. His locked trunk, stored in the captain's cabin, contained something else entirely. The cargo manifest listed the medical supplies in hold number 3, 2,000 units of whole blood plasma, 5,000 units of penicillin, still experimental, desperately needed in England, 400 pounds of sulfa drugs, surgical instruments, and 50 cases of morphine. Total declared value, $340,000. Actual value, incalculable. Blood plasma alone could save hundreds of soldiers. Penicillin could prevent thousands of deaths from infection. But there was additional cargo not listed on any manifest. In hold number 4, in a section sealed by Naval Intelligence and marked Classified Medical Research Materials, sat 18 heavy crates. Each bore stenciled warnings: fragile, temperature sensitive, authorized personnel only. The longshoremen who'd loaded them in New York Harbor had been sworn to secrecy, though secrecy meant little when a man came home and told his wife he'd loaded something that made strange sounds, like breathing, almost, or maybe just air escaping from poorly sealed crates. The Mercy Williams had passed through the submarine nets at the mouth of New York Harbor at 0600 hours, February 12, 1943. Weather: clear, cold, northwest wind at 15 knots. The convoy formed up east of Ambrose Light, 43 merchant vessels and 6 escorts. By noon, the ships had settled into formation, and the vast procession began crawling east at 9 knots, the speed of the slowest vessel, a Norwegian tanker with engine trouble. For 7 days, the crossing was routine. Cold, rough, but routine. The convoy zigzagged to confuse U-boats. Radio silence was maintained except for emergencies. The Mercy Williams kept station, her engines running smoothly, her cargo secure. On the 8th day, things changed. February 19th. First Officer Chen noted in the deck log, 2,230 hours. Dr. Marsh requested permission to work in hold number 4. Captain approved. Dr. Marsh entered hold with 2 seamen, Johnson and Peters, to assist with temperature monitoring of medical supplies. Unusual for night work, but doctor claims penicillin is temperature sensitive and today's weather change requires adjustment. February 20th. 0130 hours. Able seaman Michael Corrigan, standing. Watch on the forward deck, reported to Second Officer Hartwell. Heard shouting from hold 4, sir. Then nothing. Then heard it again. Couldn't make out words. 0147 hours. Captain Vickers went below to investigate. 0152 hours. Captain returned to bridge. Ordered helm to turn 15 degrees to starboard, taking the ship out of convoy formation. Reason given: medical emergency requiring immediate attention. Will rejoin convoy at dawn. 0200 hours. The Mercy Williams disappeared into the darkness between convoys, engines at full power, heading northeast, away from the convoy route, away from the regular shipping lanes, toward absolutely nothing but empty ocean. No distress signal was sent. No explanation radioed. No convoy commodore notified. The Liberty ship simply vanished, carrying 47 men, 7,000 tons of cargo, and 18 crates containing something that military censors would later classify under project designation, Icarus 7. For 57 days, she drifted. The Atlantic current carried her south, then west, then south again in a slow spiral. Storms battered her. Ice formed and melted and formed again. Her engines cooled. Her boilers went cold. And somewhere inside that steel hull, in corridors lit only by emergency lanterns running on failing batteries, something had happened that even experienced Coast Guardsmen, men who'd seen ship fires, U-boat attacks, men frozen in lifeboats, would refuse to discuss for the rest of their lives. When Lieutenant Commander Benson ordered his boarding party to prepare grappling hooks and lines, Petty Officer Thomas Wright, decorated veteran of the Battle of the Atlantic, survivor of 4 convoy actions, asked permission to remain aboard the cutter. "Why?" Benson asked. Wright pointed at the Mercy Williams. "Look at her portholes, sir." Benson raised binoculars. The ship had 17 portholes visible on the port side. 15 were dark. 2 glowed with faint, sickly yellow light, not the warm orange of oil lanterns, not the white of electric lights, but something else. Something that pulsed irregularly, like a heartbeat. "Probably just emergency lighting," Benson said. But his voice lacked conviction. "Sir," Wright said quietly, "I've been at sea since 1937. Never seen light like that. And, sir—" He paused. "Why hasn't anyone come on deck? They must have seen us approach. We're making 8 knots, close enough they can probably hear our engines. Why hasn't anyone signaled? Why hasn't anyone?" He trailed off. "Why hasn't anyone come up for rescue?" Benson ordered the boarding party to arm themselves. Standard procedure was to board derelict vessels with tools, wrenches, axes for cutting lines. He ordered rifles. At 0412 hours, 9 men from the Coast Guard cutter crossed to the Liberty ship via rope ladder. Benson led. Wright reluctantly followed. They climbed over the rail and dropped to the deck of the Mercy Williams. The first thing they noticed was the smell. Not decay, that would come later, would be discovered in the holds. This was something else. Chemical. Sweet and sharp at the same time, like formaldehyde mixed with something organic. Like a hospital mixed with a slaughterhouse. The smell that clings to places where the boundaries between healing and harm have dissolved completely. The second thing they noticed were the scratches. The deck was gouged with long parallel marks, as if something, or someone, had been dragged the length of the ship, fingernails or perhaps tools scraping desperately at the steel plates. The scratches led from the forward cargo hold toward the stern, then disappeared at the edge of the superstructure. The third thing they noticed, as dawn broke fully and weak sunlight illuminated the deck, was the door to hold number 4. It had been welded shut from the outside. Thick beads of welding metal ran along the entire perimeter of the door frame. Someone had sealed it completely, making it airtight, ensuring that whatever was inside couldn't get out. Or perhaps ensuring that whoever was inside couldn't escape. Painted on the steel door in foot-high letters, rust-red paint applied hastily, were 2 words. "Burn this." Lieutenant Commander Benson stood on the deck and watched his men cut through the welded door. The acetylene torch hissed and sparked, eating through thick beads of metal that someone, one of the crew, had laid down with desperate precision. It took 45 minutes. When the door finally gave way, pushed open by 2 sailors using crowbars, the smell that rolled out made 3 men retch immediately. Not death alone. Benson had smelled death. This was death mixed with chemistry, biology gone wrong, the odor of a laboratory accident combined with a charnel house. Sweet rot and sharp formaldehyde and something else, something burning, though nothing was on fire. Benson tied a handkerchief over his face and went in first. His flashlight beam cut through darkness. Hold number 4 was 60 feet long, 40 feet wide, extending down 20 feet to the lower deck. It should have been filled with cargo. Instead, it had been converted into something else entirely. Medical equipment filled half the space. Examination tables, 12 of them, bolted to the deck. Each table had restraints, leather straps, buckles, metal chains. 4 stands surrounded each table, tubing hanging limp. Overhead surgical lights had been rigged on extension cords, running to a portable generator that had long since run out of fuel. Along the port bulkhead, metal cabinets held medical supplies, syringes, scalpels, bottles of clear fluid, jars labeled in precise handwriting. The starboard bulkhead had been modified. Someone had welded metal bars into place, creating 8 cells, each 6 feet by 8 feet. Prison cells, essentially, with metal bunks, buckets for waste, and heavy padlocks on the doors. 6 cells were open. 2 were locked. Benson approached the first locked cell. The padlock was substantial, military issue. He shot it off with his pistol. The door swung open. The cell was empty except for a man's wallet and a watch. Benson opened the wallet. Seaman's card. Michael Corrigan, able seaman, 24 years old, from Cleveland, Ohio. The watch had stopped at 2:47. No indication if that was AM or PM, or what day it had stopped. The second locked cell contained something worse. When Benson shot the padlock and opened the door, he found a body. Male, approximately 30 to 35 years old, dressed in tattered clothes that might once have been a merchant marine uniform. The body was positioned sitting upright in the corner, back against the bulkhead, knees drawn up. Skeletal hands clutched a folded piece of paper. Benson removed the paper carefully. It was the ship's manifest, marked with handwriting in the margins. The writing was cramped, frantic, often illegible, but certain passages were clear. February 20th. Marsh opened crates. Not medical supplies. Test subjects. 18 men. Quarantine cases from Bethesda Psychiatric Ward. Marsh claims they volunteered. I don't believe him. They're sedated, restrained. He's starting treatments immediately. February 21st. Temperatures rising in hold. Marsh using heat lamps, maintaining 105 degrees Fahrenheit constant. Says accelerated healing requires elevated body temp. Subjects showing distress. 2 died from hyperthermia. Marsh not concerned. Says, within acceptable parameters. Captain ordered him to stop. Marsh refused. Showed sealed orders from Naval Medical Command. Captain has no authority to override. February 22nd. Remaining subjects showing changes. Skin lesions healing rapidly but wrong. Tissue growing too fast, forming masses. 1 subject's arm wound closed overnight, but arm is now 30% larger than other arm. Muscle tissue hyperdeveloped. Marsh excited. Says Icarus, 7 compound is working beyond predictions. February 23rd. Subjects breaking restraints. Metal straps bent like wire. Marsh sedated them with morphine. Didn't work. Whatever Icarus did to their bodies metabolizes drugs instantly. They're awake, aware, and changing. Skin turning gray. Eyes dilated. Don't respond to voices. Marsh locked them in cells. Captain finally radioed for help. Marsh destroyed radio. Said research too valuable to abort. February 24th. 3 subjects broke cell doors. Killed Dr. Marsh first, tore him apart. Then went after crew. They're strong. Impossibly strong. Fast. We sealed them in hold, but they're breaking through. Captain ordered ship abandoned, but lifeboats damaged in struggle. No way off. We'll try to scuttle ship. If this fails, God help whoever finds us. The writing stopped. The date was February 26th. 32 days before the Spencer found the drifting ship. Benson backed out of the cell. Petty Officer Wright. I need every man on deck. No. We're evacuating this vessel immediately. Sir, we haven't searched the other holds. I said now. Wright opened his mouth to argue, then saw Benson's face. Yes, sir. But it was too late. From somewhere deeper in the ship, from one of the other holds, or perhaps from the flooded engine room, or maybe from spaces that shouldn't exist in the ship's architecture, came a sound. Not mechanical. Not human either. Something between the two. A breathing sound, wet and rhythmic, accompanied by a scraping noise like metal on metal. Something was still alive on the Mercy Williams. April 18, 1943. Aboard USS Sterling. Destroyer escort. 0800 hours. The Navy's salvage operation arrived 12 hours after Benson's initial boarding. 2 destroyers, a fleet tug, and a medical team led by Captain Raymond Archer, Naval Medical Corps, who carried authorization signed by the Surgeon General himself. Archer brought gas masks, flamethrowers, and sealed orders that he shared with no one. The search of the Mercy Williams took 3 days. What they found was documented in reports that remained classified until 1978, and then heavily redacted when finally released. But the outline of events can be reconstructed. Hold number 1, empty except for steel plates and grain. Undisturbed. Hold number 2, additional grain and crated machinery. Also undisturbed. Hold number 3, medical supplies, blood plasma, penicillin, morphine. All intact. Some packages had been opened, contents used, presumably by Dr. Marsh during his experiments. Hold number 4, the converted laboratory. 18 empty crates. Medical equipment. The cells. And evidence of violence throughout. Blood spatters, tested later, showed 7 different blood types, bullet holes in the bulkheads, scorch marks suggesting fire. In the examination area, they found Dr. Marsh's body. Or what remained of it. Medical examiner's report, written by Dr. Archer himself, noted, body torn apart with extreme force. Arms disarticulated at shoulder joints. Rib cage collapsed. Evidence suggests manual trauma. No cutting instruments used. Strength required to inflict these injuries exceeds normal human capacity by factor of 5 minimum. Marsh's medical bag was recovered intact. Inside, his research journal. 247 pages of dense technical writing describing Project Icarus. The drug compound, designated Icarus-7, was designed to accelerate cellular regeneration by increasing core body temperature and introducing a catalyst derived from shark cartilage proteins and experimental growth hormones. In controlled laboratory conditions with animal subjects, Icarus had shown remarkable results. Wounds healing in hours instead of days, broken bones knitting in a week instead of months. Human trials had been approved for terminal patients only, volunteers with nothing to lose. But Dr. Marsh, according to his own journal, had secured 18 male subjects, ages 25 to 40, from psychiatric facilities under false commitments. Subjects were selected for physical health and regenerative potential. Psychiatric conditions provide cover story for behavioral changes during treatment. In other words, Marsh had kidnapped psychiatric patients, told no one, and experimented on them in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The journal's final entries, dated February 24, showed Marsh's growing alarm and excitement simultaneously. Icarus, 7 compound exceeds all projections. Cellular regeneration occurring at 12x normal speed. However, side effects severe. Hyperthermia permanent. Body temperature stabilized at 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Muscle mass increased 40% in 48 hours. Bone density doubled. Subjects no longer responsive to verbal commands. Pain response absent. Cognitive function severely impaired. But physical results unprecedented. Further study required. Further study required. As men died around him. As his test subjects transformed into something that could bend metal and shatter bones. Dr. Marsh, right until the moment they killed him, believed he was advancing science. Hold number 5, the engine room. Flooded. 3 bodies were found here, all merchant crew, all drowned. They'd been attempting to open the sea cocks to scuttle the ship when something had interrupted them. The seacocks were open, but not enough to sink a Liberty ship completely. These vessels were built with multiple watertight compartments. The Mercy Williams might have gone down eventually, but she drifted for weeks, half-flooded, circling slowly in the Atlantic current. The crew quarters searched deck by deck, cabin by cabin. They found more bodies. Chief Engineer Webb in his cabin, crushed against the bulkhead with such force his ribs had broken through his back. Second Officer Hartwell in the radio room, where he'd apparently made one last attempt to signal for help before being killed. First Officer Chen in the chart room, where he'd barricaded himself behind overturned tables. The barricade had been torn apart like paper. Captain Vickers was found on the bridge. He'd shot himself. His service revolver lay beside him, one round fired. A note in his pocket, addressed to his wife Dorothy, said simply, "I failed to protect my crew. Forgive me. Tell Helen I love her. Burn this ship." In total, they recovered 23 bodies. 18 crew members, plus the 5 bodies found in Hold 4, Dr. Marsh and 4 of the test subjects, killed apparently by other subjects during the initial outbreak. That left 13 unaccounted for. 13 transformed test subjects who'd broken free from their cells, killed the doctor who'd created them, hunted down crew members through the corridors of the Liberty ship. Where were they? The answer came on April 21st, when salvage divers went down to inspect the hull damage. The Mercy Williams had a 20-foot gash below the waterline, port side, near the engine room. The edges of the torn metal were bent outward, not inward. Something had punched through from inside. The divers found more bodies in the water around the ship. 11 of them, floating at various depths, preserved by cold North Atlantic water. When brought aboard and examined, Dr. Archer noted their condition with clinical precision. Bodies show extreme muscular hypertrophy. Skeletal structure modified, denser, heavier. Skin tissue thickened, gray in color, covered in lesions consistent with rapid cell growth. Fingernails grown to 3 to 4 inches, hardened. Dental structure modified, canines elongated. Core body temperature, even in death, measured 94 to 7 degrees above ambient water temperature, suggesting metabolic processes continued after death. Most significantly, all bodies show evidence of drowning. Lungs filled with seawater. They escaped the ship into the ocean, where they died. Whether they intended suicide, or believed they could swim to safety, or simply acted without rational thought, cannot be determined. These were human beings. Dr. Marsh's research transformed them into something else. But that transformation was incomplete, unstable, and ultimately fatal. 2 subjects were never found. Diver search continued for a week. The ocean gave up nothing more. April 28, 1943. Final disposition of SS Mercy Williams. The Navy's plan had been to tow the Liberty ship to a secure location for further study. Captain Archer vetoed this. His report to Naval Medical Command was unambiguous. Icarus 7 research represents catastrophic failure with potential for biohazard contamination. Ship cannot be safely salvaged. Recommend immediate scuttling in deep water beyond civilian shipping lanes. On April 29, 1943, at 0600 hours, demolition charges were placed throughout the Mercy Williams. The ship was towed 200 miles further out into the Atlantic, to a position above the Somme abyssal plain, where the ocean floor drops to 15,000 feet. At 0843 hours, charges were detonated. The Liberty ship broke in half, rolled, and sank in 8 minutes. Depth charges were dropped to ensure complete destruction. The official record listed SS Mercy Williams as lost to enemy action, February 20, 1943. All hands presumed killed. Wreckage located and destroyed April 29, 1943, to prevent salvage by enemy forces. No mention of Icarus. No mention of Dr. Marsh's experiments. No mention of 18 men transformed into monsters. No mention of the two who were never found. The families were notified. 47 telegrams delivered to homes across America. Same message for each. The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you that name is missing in action in service to his country. Vessel lost to enemy action February 20, 1943. If additional information becomes available, you will be notified immediately. Dorothy Vickers received hers on May 12, her daughter Helen's 17th birthday. She'd waited by the door every day since April, knowing something was wrong, feeling it. When the messenger knocked, she opened the door already crying. She would spend the rest of her life writing letters to the Navy Department, requesting information, demanding truth. The Navy's replies were uniformly polite and uninformative. Classified wartime operations. Cannot disclose. Regret unable to provide additional details. Dorothy Vickers died in 1963, never knowing how her husband died. Never knowing he'd tried to save his crew. Never knowing he'd placed one bullet in his own head rather than face what was hunting him through his ship. Perhaps that was mercy. June 1943. Naval Medical Command, Bethesda. Project Icarus was not terminated. It was renamed Project Phoenix and classified top secret. Research continued using controlled laboratory conditions, animal subjects only, with strict oversight. The program would continue through 1951, producing incremental advances in burn treatment and wound healing that would save thousands of lives in Korea. But human trials were never approved again. Dr. Marsh's research notes were classified and buried in secure storage. His name was removed from all publications. His career, his discoveries, his crimes, all erased. 3 of the researchers who'd worked on early Icarus iterations committed suicide between 1943 and 1945. One left a note, "I helped create the compound. I didn't know what they'd do with it. I didn't know. God forgive me, I didn't know." August 1943. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Francis Kelly received a visit from 2 naval intelligence officers. The conversation was brief and unambiguous. "You've been asking questions about classified matters. This stops now. You will sign non-disclosure documentation. You will never speak about this again. Violation will be treated as treason in wartime. Do you understand?" Kelly understood. He signed. He never spoke of it again publicly. But in private, over drinks with Thomas Brennan in the years after the war, he would say, "We found that ship. We brought the Coast Guard to it. And I think about that every day. What if we'd just let it drift? What if we'd left it alone? Those boys were already dead. We didn't save anyone. We just documented the horror. For what?" Brennan never had an answer. 1978. Freedom of Information Act. The first documents about the Mercy Williams were declassified. Heavily redacted. Most technical details removed. But enough remained to confirm what rumors had whispered for decades. The Navy had conducted medical experiments on human subjects without consent. Men had died. A ship had been deliberately sunk to hide evidence. There was no public outcry. The war had been over for 33 years. The men involved were mostly dead. The families had moved on, or died themselves, or simply given up seeking truth. But 3 graduate students at the Naval War College in Newport found the files and wrote papers. And journalists started asking questions. And slowly, pieces of the story emerged. 1995. North Atlantic. 41 degrees 23 minutes north, 49 degrees 18 minutes west. A deep-sea exploration vessel, searching for a different wreck, passed over the Somme abyssal plain. Their sonar recorded an anomaly, scattered debris consistent with a medium-sized vessel, broken into multiple sections. The position matched no known wrecks. They logged it as unknown Liberty ship, possibly SS Mercy Williams, lost 1943. They took no further action. The wreck was 3 miles down, beyond recreational diving depth, beyond salvage operations, beyond human reach. It remains there still. Steel rusting into ocean sediment. Bones settling into silt. 18 crates, now crushed by pressure, their contents long since dissolved into the abyss. 2003. Medical Research Ethics. The story of the Mercy Williams, or at least the sanitized version, became a case study at Johns Hopkins Medical School. Not because of what happened. Medical experimentation without consent was unfortunately common in the 1940s, but because of the Navy's response. The decision to sink the ship. To hide evidence. To deny families closure. A professor of medical ethics named Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to First Officer Robert Chen, though she wondered sometimes, used the case to illustrate a principle. Institutions will prioritize self-protection over truth. Always. The Navy chose to bury evidence rather than face accountability. This is why oversight matters. This is why transparency matters. This is why we have regulations preventing secret research. Because without oversight, without transparency, there's nothing stopping a brilliant doctor from deciding 18 psychiatric patients are acceptable losses in pursuit of medical advancement. There's nothing stopping a military command from authorizing lethal experiments on unwilling subjects. There's nothing stopping another Mercy Williams. We assume it can't happen again. We're wrong. It's happening somewhere, right now, in some laboratory with insufficient oversight, in some black budget program with classified authorization. The names change. The technologies change. But the fundamental equation remains. Isolation plus secrecy plus ambition equals atrocity. The ocean is still full of secrets. Some deserve to stay buried. Others need to be remembered, not to punish the dead, but to protect the living. 2018. Final accounting. The SS Mercy Williams, hull number 442, built in 6 weeks, sailed for 8 days, drifted for 57, and sank in 8 minutes, taking with it 47 merchant crew members and Navy personnel, 18 psychiatric patients used as test subjects, 176 tons of cargo, including desperately needed medical supplies, evidence of medical experiments that violated every ethical standard of modern medicine, truth that 30 families never received. The ship's bell, melted in 1943, was recast into a memorial at Philadelphia Naval Yard in 1983. The memorial lists the names of 47 crew members. It does not list the 18 test subjects. Their names, their identities, remain classified. Even in death, they are anonymous. Even in memorial, they are forgotten. The inscription reads, "In memory of the crew of SS Mercy Williams, lost in service to their country, February 1943. May they rest in peace." They do not rest in peace. How could they? They rest 3 miles down in darkness, in a ship that was never supposed to exist, victims of an experiment that was never acknowledged, buried in an ocean that keeps all secrets. The lesson never learned. In 2007, the Navy acknowledged a program called Project SHAD, Shipboard Hazard and Defense, conducted from 1962 to 1974, where Navy ships and their crews were exposed to chemical and biological agents without informed consent, to test protective equipment and decontamination procedures. Thousands of sailors were exposed. Many developed cancers, respiratory illnesses, neurological conditions. Most never knew they'd been test subjects until decades later. The military's response, classified at the time. Necessary for national security. Regrettable but justified. In 2010, Guatemala admitted that U.S. medical researchers had deliberately infected Guatemalan prisoners and psychiatric patients with syphilis and gonorrhea from 1946 to 1948 to study disease progression and treatment. President Obama apologized. No one was prosecuted. The researchers had died decades earlier. The pattern holds. The lesson repeats. Isolation enables experimentation. Secrecy enables abuse. Desperation justifies atrocity. And somewhere, in some facility, under some classified designation, someone is making the same calculations Dr. Marsh made in 1943. The potential benefits outweigh the risks. These subjects are expendable. Progress requires sacrifice. No one will ever know. But the Atlantic knows. 3 miles down, where light never reaches and pressure crushes steel, the Mercy Williams rests. Not at peace. Never at peace. Just waiting. Waiting for the day when history repeats again. Waiting for the next ship to sail with sealed orders and secret cargo. Waiting for the next doctor who believes that ambition matters more than consent, that science matters more than humanity, that results matter more than lives. The ocean is patient. The ocean remembers. And somewhere in the darkness, 2 bodies were never found.